Osama bin Laden appears ready to call a truce, but will European leaders listen? The adjuncts versus the university. Who will win the battle around the arch, and what will this mean for you? The midnight deadline to file your taxes is just hours away, but we'll tell you how to buy yourself a little more time. And tonight marks the end of the longest job interview. These stories and more coming up right now on NYU Tonight.
Good evening, you're watching NYU Tonight. It's Thursday, April 15th. I'm Jesse McNeill.
And I'm Adriana Prado. Is Osama bin Laden willing to make a truce with Europe? Well, he might be, but European leaders are refusing to even consider negotiating with the al-Qaeda leader. An audio tape supposedly by bin Laden was played on an Arabic network yesterday. On it, he once again called for revenge on America, but offered a truce to any European state that, quote, stops attacking Muslims, unquote. The speaker on the tape also refers to the September 11th attacks on the Madrid train bombing and the Madrid train bombings last month. But European governments, from French President Chirac to English and German officials, are united in their stance to confront terrorism and not bargain with it. The voice on the tape is likely bin Laden, but the CIA said it's impossible to be sure.
An Israeli helicopter fired into a crowd in the Gaza Strip today, wounding 15 people, 4 critically. Israeli tanks and armored vehicles entered the southern city of Rafah late Wednesday. According to the officials, the attack was in response to a group of armed Palestinians who activated 4 explosive devices and launched 2 anti-attack missiles at Israeli forces. The assault comes one day after Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon met with President Bush in Washington, D.C. The leaders discussed a significant shift in U.S. policy Wednesday in Israel's favor, as President Bush gave his backing to what Prime Minister Sharon calls an unilateral disengagement plan. By promising to trade the Gaza settlements and a handful of settlements in the West Bank, Prime Minister Sharon got all of the commitments he wanted from his most important ally, including backing for withdrawal from Gaza and U.S. acknowledgement Israel would hold on to parts of the West Bank. In addition, President Bush agreed to deny millions of Palestinian refugees the right to return to their former homes in what is now Israel. The hope of both President Bush and Prime Minister Sharon is that the disengagement plan could reinvigorate the peace process by accelerating a 2-state solution. This morning, Israel's Attorney General proved the state's sincerity by imposing an unprecedented freeze on all settlement construction funds, accusing settlers of illegally building up unauthorized West Bank property that Israel promised to give up. And today, Palestinian leaders were looking for international support after President Bush suggested Israel would not have to give back all the West Bank or accept Palestinian refugees in a final peace plan. Palestinian Authority President Yasser Arafat responded to comments by the U.S.-Israeli alliance, saying Palestinians will never give up their quest for an independent state and the right of refugees to return to their lands, issues that have been long-time obstacles to peace between the two countries.
There's some good news out of Iraq today. 3 Japanese citizens who had been held hostage by an insurgent Iraqi militant group are now free and unharmed in the safety of the Japanese embassy in Baghdad. This video, broadcast by the Arabic TV station Al Jazeera, shows the former captives talking with members of the Islamic Clerics Committee, a Sunni organization that had worked for their freedom. The group responsible for the kidnapping a week ago had threatened to burn their hostages alive in Japan if Japan did not withdraw its 500 troops from Iraq. The Japanese government refused to negotiate with the militants, saying that their troops were on a strictly humanitarian mission. But on a sadder note, an Italian security worker who was also taken hostage during the wave of kidnappings this past week has been killed by his captors. Also, an Iranian diplomat was shot and killed today, the victim of an apparent assassination. The diplomat was a member of a special envoy working to end the standoff between coalition forces and the Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr. These incidents demonstrate the dangerous and unstable conditions that have intensified this month, along with several fronts. The Pentagon now says that 20,000 U.S. troops scheduled to return home will have to stay in Iraq for at least 3 more months. Despite the significant shift in policy, which breaks a pre-war promise that no soldier would have to serve in Iraq for more than a year, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Richard Myers disputes the suggestion that the latest rise in violence represents a general uprising of the Iraqi people.
No, this was not an uprising. This was not a popular resistance against the coalition. This was a few hundred people in various cities trying to, through fear and terror, have their way.
April has officially become the deadliest month in Iraq for U.S. soldiers. At least 88 have been killed in action, along with about 900 Iraqi fighters.
University of Wisconsin-Madison sophomore Audrey Sealer was charged with faking her own abduction. She was discovered curled in the fetal position in a marsh on March 31st, telling police that a man had abducted her at knife point. Police concluded Sealer had made up the story after obtaining a store videotape that showed her buying the knife, duct tape, rope, and cold medicine she claimed her abductor used to restrain her. Sealer confessed after she was confronted with the tape. Randy Hopper is the attorney of Sealer.
Even the police are still investigating this matter. We're still investigating it. And until we really have all the facts, we're not going to know exactly what happened. That's why we try cases like this in a court of law and not fully in the court of public opinion, so that all the facts can come in and a trier of fact.
Sealer is trying to reach a plea agreement and avoid trial on charges of obstruction. The student faces up to 9 months in jail and a $10,000 fine for each of the 2 misdemeanor charges.
A judge ruled today that the Jason Williams manslaughter trial will continue, denying a motion by the defense to dismiss all charges against the retired NBA star. The defense argued that evidence withheld by the prosecution made it impossible for Williams to receive a fair trial. The prosecution denied this claim and maintained it unintentionally forgot to turn over notes and photographs from their weapons expert before the trial started. Williams was not in court today following the birth of his second daughter on Tuesday. John Kerry raked in a remarkable $6.5 million for his campaign yesterday. This shattered President Bush's all-time record for a single day's fundraising haul. The Democratic presidential candidate drew celebrities such as Christy Brinkley, Kathleen Turner, Natalie Portman, and soprano star Steve Buscemi to parties in New York that eclipsed the $5.5 million Bush collected in Chicago and Cincinnati on September 30th.
And now here to answer all those Washington Square questions and to set the record for her own, Linda Katzman with your NYU Focus. Linda?
Thanks, Jesse. NYU adjuncts have authorized a strike. Scott Sommer, a UAW spokesman, told NYU Tonight 91.4% of adjuncts voted to authorize the action. This does not mean there will definitely be a strike. If the UAW is hoping NYU will meet their Wednesday deadline for negotiations. If the university fails to comply or make progress with the union's demands, the adjuncts will go on strike beginning Wednesday morning for an indefinite period of time. Sommer says the adjuncts are, quote, angry and are aware that the university has the ability to treat them better, unquote. As for how students will be affected by the strike, the university says it cannot guarantee that there will be no disruptions, but university spokesperson John Beckman said in a press release today, quote, that the university and its schools will do whatever we have to do to guarantee that our students' hard work this semester will not have been in vain, that their academic program and coursework will be completed in an appropriate and responsible way, and that those students who are scheduled to graduate will do so, unquote. So for now, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Steinhardt School of Education is having their 2004 Masters Dance Concert called In Motion from April 16th through the 18th at the Frederick Lowe Theater on West 4th Street. The concert will showcase the talent of graduate dance students in various genres such as modern, hip-hop, tap, and ballet. Student tickets are only $5 and $10 for general admission. So you should all dance on over to the phone and call 212-998-5400 for reservations. CBS Evening News executive producer Jim Murphy was today's featured brown bag lunch speaker at the journalism department. Isha Mehta has more.
Everyone's always fighting over what's right. You know, what's more objective. And everyone who's having that argument is biased in some way. They are.
Jim Murphy approached the age-old debate of ethics in news, and what he had to say was a little surprising.
I love when people talk about pure objectivity and bias. First of all, there is no such thing as pure objectivity. It exists in an intellectual sphere. But everybody brings baggage to work. Your brain does things you can't objectively know about. So therefore, I believe it's impossible to be purely objective.
Mr. Murphy also mentioned the way CBS covered the recent incident in Fallujah.
I digitally doctored some of the footage because I did not think that people needed to see that while they were dragging that body, pieces of it were coming off. It got me sick when I saw it. I didn't feel I needed to get people sick to tell them the story, but I did show them what was happening there, and I think they understood.
Jim Murphy's discussion of his experiences at CBS inspired students who attended the Brown Bag today.
I expect that anybody who seriously wants to become a journalist is going to be a very obsessive and tired person.
Yeah.
And it's not about the money. It's about the news and delivering the best story that you can.
If you want an Emmy, you get into broadcast here, cable. And if you want to just be the best journalist who ever lived and not have anyone know you, then you go make documentaries.
For NYU Tonight, I'm Isha Mehta.
Senior Week kicks off next Monday with activities ranging from fabulous food to thrilling theater. It all ends with a chance to dance the night away at the Hilton Hotel. It's time to get on the ball and get your tickets because most of the events are already sold out. Head over to Ticket Central to join the rest of the class of 2004 in going out with a bang. Here's a list of the upcoming week's events. For those of you looking to party in between graduation ceremonies, there's always Grad Alley, the senior carnival. Tickets are now available for pickup at the Commencement Center at 25 West 4th. And attention all you procrastinators out there. It isn't too late to order your tickets for the commencement ceremonies, but the deadline is fast approaching, so get those tickets by April 24th. That's the NYU Focus, and I'm Linda Katzman. Back to you, Jesse.
Thanks, Linda. Relatives of a man who suffered a heart attack while getting a parking ticket are suing the city for $100 million. Onofrio Avinti was double parked in Brooklyn on Saturday when he received the ticket. After talking to the traffic agent, Avanti got back into his car and started clutching his chest. His family says the traffic agent left without calling an ambulance, resulting in Avinti's death. The police department has denied the account.
You've been told not to do it since you were a kid, and maybe it's the rebel in you. Brooks Hornsby reports.
Smoke.
No one should start smoking. It's terrible.
Odd advice coming from smokers. Maybe it's because you can no longer smoke in bars, or because the price of cigarettes is, well...
Taxes are ridiculous. It costs a ton of money. I mean, I'm from out of New York City, and when I go back home, cigarettes are so much cheaper.
Despite the cost and the well-known health problems, many students still smoke. Why?
Habit, stress, anything cool and sexy.
Because I'm addicted. I used to think it was kind of cool and sexy, but now I'm just addicted.
Such a strong addiction that most smokers are willing to go outside to smoke. And many that have quit go back to it. NYU Center for Health Promotion has a Quit and Win program, which is free and confidential for students. But when asked for an interview, the center declined. And some students don't know it exists.
No, I did not know about that, so that's very cool. It's nice that they offer.
I didn't know that. I had no idea that the medical center offered programs to help you quit.
I did know that, yes.
What do you think about that? That's cool if that's what you want to do. I don't really want to quit smoking yet.
No matter what happens, from tax increases to bans, students aren't extinguishing the habit, at least for now. For NYU Tonight, I'm Brooks Hornsby.
The San Andreas Fault might produce a flurry of earthquakes that could shake Southern California every few decades or less. That's according to a geologist at the University of Oregon. This announcement came yesterday at the annual Seismological Society of America meeting. The southern portion of the fault last ruptured in 1857, and now the levels of strain on the San Andreas are at their highest in 1,500 years. This pent-up energy may be released as a series of earthquakes and tremors soon, if these recent predictions are correct.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone. The next 5 days are shaping up to be very nice, with temperatures reaching up into the 60s and 70s. On Monday, We may even reach a high of 80 degrees. Time to break out the shorts and t-shirts, kids. Summer is almost here.
New York City has a tough new message for thousands of public housing residents. Get a job, volunteer, or get out. The New York Times reports the city plans to enforce 6-year-old federal legislation requiring public housing residents to perform 96 hours of unpaid community service per year. The disabled and those over 62 are exempt from the law, as well as anyone working or studying full-time, or actively looking for a job. Residents caring for a young child or disabled person may also be exempted, but those who do not comply face eviction.
If you have your heart set on owning an apartment in Manhattan, you'd better be a millionaire, literally. Buyers are driving up prices in a tight real estate market, and the average Manhattan apartment is now $998,000, which is a 28% rise since last year. The report was prepared by the appraisal firm Miller Samuel and includes Manhattan apartments below 96th Street on the east side and below 112th Street on the west side.
Coming up, from reject to chart topper, the anomaly which is William Hung, and the Apprentice craze comes to an end tonight. With news from the entertainment world, here's Ara Cho.
Thank you, Jesse. He bangs, and oh baby, he moves to the top of the charts. American Idol reject William Hung proved you don't need much skill or talent to climb up Billboard. His album Inspiration debuted at #1 on the indie music charts and number 34 on Billboard's Top 200 this week. In fact, if his sales go on, he might even outsell Justin Guarini. Maybe they'll come out with a movie next. From Clay to Hung. Mo money. Is it going to be Kwame or Bill who will hear, "You're hired" from the Donald on The Apprentice? The final 2 contestants will duke it out on the 2-hour live broadcast tonight at 9. The winner will get to work for the billionaire tycoon and receive a $250,000 salary. For Apprentice addicts, a second dose of this TV rating smash will be coming soon. Casting for the next Apprentice is already underway. Now for NYU entertainment news, the festivities continue for Asian Cultural Month. This Saturday, the Filipino Culture Night is going on at Kimmel. Doors open at 6 o'clock and tickets are $7 for NYU students. It should be fun, and maybe they'll do the cool bamboo dance. Another cool NYU event going on is the Gallatin Arts Festival this Sunday at Kimmel. This is the annual showcase of creative work by Gallatin students. Tickets are free, so stop by and check out some artsy work by your fellow students. With the over 300 registered clubs here on campus, 20 of them are religious. This makes it hard for them to leave their mark on students. But one club has tried to do just that. Elizabeth Yoon reports.
A variety show here on campus?
I think it's good just that we would have a presence on this campus, just to place ourselves on the map here, just so that students would be aware that, we are a fellowship that exists on NYU.
Korea Campus Crusade for Christ, also known as KCCC, is one of 20 Christian clubs on campus. Last week, KCCC partnered with the other 19 fellowships on campus to celebrate Agape Week. But this week, the club made a name for itself. The club presented its very first talent show. Students from within and outside of the club performed to raise funds for its annual summer missions trip. Students gave performances ranging from instrumentals to rap and spoken word. Each performance had its own style and flavor.
Wishful thinking, y'all, I just keep it real. Satan sees your flaws and he knows you're trying to expose you, but God knows all your flaws and he still chose you.
I was so impressed and it was so good. I think there's a lot of talent I didn't even know about. Like there's different aspects of like talent that we didn't even think about, but it's really cool to see it all come together.
I was very encouraged by the students who have who showcase so many different talents, and just really using those talents for the purposes of, why we exist, which is to glorify God.
The night ended with a fashion show. They presented the traditional apparel of the different countries where students will be serving as short-term missionaries this summer. KCCC meets Mondays at 6 p.m. in room 808 of Kimmel. For NYU Tonight, this is Elizabeth Yoon.
For entertainment and arts, I'm Ara Cho. Back to you, Jesse.
Thanks, Ara. The Brooklyn man accused of beating his girlfriend's cat to death was arrested yesterday. James Whalen was charged with aggravated animal cruelty in the death of Darwin, a 5-year-old tabby. He's accused of beating Darwin so badly in a fit of anger that the cat suffered facial bruises and a broken jaw and tail. The cat was taken to a veterinarian where it later died. After the veterinarian notified the ASPCA, Special Agent Joe Pantangelo spoke with Whalen and his girlfriend, and then made the arrest. Whalen faces up to 2 years in prison and a $5,000 fine if convicted.
The CIA and FBI made a shocking admission at the 9/11 Commission hearings. They said they're years away from being fully prepared to deal with the terrorist threat. They say while progress has been made, the U.S. remains vulnerable. 9/11 Commission member Slade Gorton had this to say.
What we are here to do is first to come up with an objective history of what led up to 9/11. Who did what and when they did it, who didn't do what they ought to have done, and what the consequences were. And the next thing we're to do is to come up with recommendations as to how we can do better in the future, even though there may have been some improvements since then. Whether or not someone ought to be fired is going to be a conclusion that the President and the Congress and the people of the United States make after we tell them what the facts are.
FBI Director Robert Mueller and CIA Director George Tenet say a new domestic intelligence agency isn't necessary. They say they just need time to complete reforms that have already started.
A color barrier was broken on this day in baseball history, and a dream matchup for the tri-state area as two rivals will go at each other this weekend. With your sports stories, here's Emmanuel Bustos.
Thanks, Jesse. 57 years ago today, Hall of Famer Jackie Robinson donned the uniform of the Brooklyn Dodgers to become the first player to break the Major League color barrier. That year, he was voted Rookie of the Year, and 2 years later was chosen for MVP. Robinson led the Dodgers to win 6 pennants in his 10-year season with the Brooklyn team. He was then traded to the New York Giants in 1956 and announced his retirement a month later. With a lifetime batting average of .311, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame the first year he was eligible. So happy anniversary number 42. The battle of the point guards will begin this Saturday as the Knicks face their ever-familiar rivals, the Nets. Stephon Marbury will face Jason Kidd at the Continental Airlines Arena. Marbury, a former Nets player, was traded to Phoenix for Jason Kidd and then joined up with the Knicks. The fateful match was sealed at the beginning of the Knicks' fourth quarter match against the Cavaliers, as the results of the Hornets-Wizards game was flashed on the scoreboard during their match. The Knicks then lost 90-100. If the Knicks would have won last night, they would have finished seeded 6th and have played number 3 seeded Detroit. This would be the first playoffs game since 2001, again initiating a tunnel series. Proving that Frisbee isn't just for beach bums and partygoers, NYU's Purple Haze heads to Princeton this weekend for the start of the Ultimate Frisbee National Tournament. Coming off a strong presence at last weekend's Yale Cup with wins against Northeastern, Brandeis, and Vassar, the men's team will join 15 other teams in the Metro New York sectionals. If they finish in the top 2 or 3 this weekend, Purple Haze will advance to the Metro East Regionals at the beginning of May in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania. An appearance at Regionals would be the first for NYU's Purple Haze. The road to the World Cup is approaching, and soon teams across the globe will be playing or getting ready to show what they got. Argentina beat Ecuador 1-0 in Lima, Peru last March, and the U.S. is getting ready for their first match against Grenada on the 19th of June. Europe is getting ready to start their preliminary competition in the fall. Now here's a look at the top 10 teams in the world of soccer. Giving you a quick glance at the top 10 favorites in the World Cup 2006. And that's what's going on in the sports world. Back to you, Jesse.
Thanks, Emmanuel. And now here's a look at how the stock markets closed today.
For those who like to wait for the last minute, today is your last day to file your income taxes. The deadline is midnight tonight, and many post offices offices across the nation are staying open late to accommodate those procrastinators. The Internal Revenue Service says that waiting until the last minute causes more problems than it's worth. Errors like forgetting to sign your return, writing the wrong Social Security number, or opting for the standard deduction, if you can itemize, happen more often if you file late. Of course, you can always file for a 4-month extension. Just be aware there will be extra interest costs. To find out last-minute tips and information, go to www.irs.gov. Happy filing. That's all for this edition of NYU Tonight. I'm Adriana Prado.
And I'm Jesse McNeill. To our executive producer, Ariel Fish, we'd like to wish you a very happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Ariel, and good night, everybody.
Have a good evening.